Hi, everybody, and welcome to NAUI's Dive Team Report. I'm your host, Greg Martin. Besides certifying more and more divers, the dive industry has another agenda, and that is to help preserve and protect the Earth's oceans. There are many aspects to keeping the oceans alive, as well as many groups and individuals working towards that goal of preserving the greatest natural resource for future generations. The National Marine Sanctuaries is one of those groups, and Kelly Drinan, Outreach Specialist and Web Coordinator for the Sanctuary's Flower Garden Banks, is here to talk about this important project.
Honestly, it's a very little known place, even here in the state of Texas, because it's 115 miles southeast of Galveston, out on the edge of the continental shelf in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a location that includes 3 underwater banks or small mountains that have coral habitats on top. East and West Flower Garden Bank have full-blown coral reef, more coral than you've ever seen in one place in your life, all hard corals, no soft corals. And then Stetson Bank, the third piece to the sanctuary, is more of what we call a coral community. It's small batches of coral with a lot of sponges and leafy algae interwoven in between. So it's more of an algal sponge community with some smatterings of coral. But all 3 places are havens of Caribbean wildlife up here in the northwestern Gulf of Mexico.
We hear all of the time about coral bleaching and other issues. Is that what this project is all about, is trying to help negate that?
Well, the National Marine Sanctuaries as a whole have a goal of protecting natural resources and cultural resources out in the ocean. So we're kind of like your national parks, but underwater. And as a whole, there are 14 different sites. Flower Garden Banks is just one of those. Bleaching and so forth isn't specifically our focus. It's the overall protection and enduring legacy of these coral reefs to make sure that they're still here for future generations. And we're very fortunate in the fact that we're dealing with coral reefs that are the healthiest probably in the entire Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico basin to start with. They're as healthy now as they were when we started monitoring them in the 70s, and even have a little more coral cover today than they did then. So at a time when coral reefs around the world are in decline, we're very fortunate to be working with a reef that is doing well, and we're trying to understand why that is and how we can help other reefs around the world. So we're kind of like a harbinger of things that could be in the future if we do better care of our reefs, as well as a place to find out what we have to lose.
So how important are National Marine Sanctuaries?
I think it's very important. If we look at the total area covered by national parks compared to National Marine Sanctuaries cover more area than all of our national parks and national wildlife areas combined, but it's still a very small percentage of what there is of our ocean that is U.S. territory of our ocean. So our national parks cover a greater percentage of our land space as the U.S. than we are protecting out in the ocean. And there are so many things that are going wrong in our ocean that we need to capture these places that are still going right and make sure that they're still here for future generations and use those to help us understand what we can do better and how it is that we're harming these other places and why some places are doing better than others.
As a diver and a group of divers with the National Association of Underwater Instructors and other organizations, we are always striving to look at the best of our oceans. And we, of course, are always trying to dive in those locations. Is diving allowed in National Marine Sanctuaries?
Absolutely. Each sanctuary is a little bit different as to what regulations and activities are allowed, but one of the mandates of the National Marine Sanctuary Act is that while resource protection is our ultimate goal, we have to allow for other compatible uses. For the Flower Garden Banks, that means diving, that means fishing, and most people are surprised to find that out, but only hook and line fishing. So there are some limitations while still allowing for recreational activities, because just like national parks, we want people to appreciate and use these areas. They're not just off limits and saying, hey, it's just protected and it's over here and, you might get to see a picture of it someday. We want people to be able to go out and experience our National Marine Sanctuaries.
That's good news from a diving standpoint. So Flower Garden Bank's just one of many. What's the next step for most people if they want to get involved in this or they want to help create other marine sanctuaries?
Well, there is actually a whole process in place for communities to nominate places for these kinds of special protections provided through the National Marine Sanctuary Program. And there is a separate website set up for that, but there is a whole nomination process that was just put in place starting last year. And so right now there are actually 2 places that have already been nominated, one up in the Great Lakes off of Wisconsin and one in Maryland in the Chesapeake Bay area. So we are in the process of accepting applications for new nominations for National Marine Sanctuaries, but this is different than it was in the past when ours was designated, for example, where it was government deciding this is a place needed protection and then looking for community support, the new nomination process comes from the communities. It's got to have community support and buy-in before it even comes up the line to be considered as a nomination. So it's a very public process, and it's for people to come forth and say these are special places that need protection because of the natural resources, because of the historic and cultural resources, because of the amazing wildlife, whatever that might be. They have to have that and the community support and the buy-in to bring to the National Marine Sanctuary program with a nomination.
So how do people find out more information about flower garden banks?
We have a great website at flowergarden.noaa.gov, and I actually happen to be the person who manages that website, and we've made a point of making it not only a little bit of information about the sanctuary, but an educational resource. So you can learn more about the biology of corals and the coral spawning process and bleaching and why that happens. You can learn more about fish species and so forth. We've got educational materials that teachers can download, things that can be used by scuba instructors as well as by classroom teachers to help enhance people's knowledge of the flower garden banks and what they might see and do out there.
I also understand the manta rays are really awesome in this location as well. But Kelly, I just want to say thanks for all your hard work from all of us divers out here, and to keep up the great work.
You're welcome.
Again, check out their website at flowergarden.noaa.gov. And if you'd like to see firsthand this incredible underwater world, check out your local NAUI dive shop. And that's this episode of NAUI's Dive Team Report. I'm Greg Martin. Thanks for listening. I'll see you underwater.